Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you this morning about road rage. Is road rage a 20th century phenomena? Is it something that just originated and we had some public media attention and we now know what it is? Or is it something that's dangerous? And I'm sure all of us have stories about road rage in our own, driving career that we can talk about today. So stick around. We'll be right back with that story. Hi there, smart drivers. Rick with Smart Drive Test talking to you today about road rage, being angry while driving, using a motor vehicle as a weapon. And there are people in the world who do use vehicles as a weapon. So there's quite a few people here already. Sengay is here. Farron is here. D. Yorker, Sheldon, Michael, Wheelman is here from Portugal. It's 7 p.m. there in beautiful Portugal. Janet's here. Carrie's here from Twin Cities. It's in the 70s today in the Twin Cities. That's awesome. Ryan is here, and Corey and D. Yorker. Since Georgia is letting users get their license, I have decided to get them on Thursday. Now I'm just waiting for them to arrive in the mail. D. Yorker, that's absolutely awesome that you're getting your license and going to start driving. I'm actually going to do a video here on some tips and techniques for new drivers who are not testing, things that they should be looking out for while they're driving, and as well some tips and strategies for parents to kind of put a little bit of surveillance on that, for lack of a better word. That's not what I was looking at, but some oversight to keep you safe so you don't get involved in a crash. Frederick is here from Denmark, awesome, and my friend Jonathan from New York City, and yes, I've had a few, and quite a number of them in Australia while I was riding my bicycle. Yeah. So if you have driven angry, which what did the course that I took on managing anger in the family says that once we get angry and once we spill over into that place where we're so angry that we're losing control, 27 lizards and a 4-year-old. That's the intellect that we have. That when we get angry or we get emotionally afraid, that our brain, our ability to have intellect shrinks exponentially. We do not think clearly. And I have been there. I have, controlling my anger because, I'm a guy. I'm a guy. I don't know whether that's a guy. But in my life, I did not have mentors who showed me how to control my anger. And I eventually, when I was older in my life, had to take a course on how to control anger. And I don't know what it is about riding a bicycle. It's frustrating being treated poorly by other drivers on the roadway. A lot of drivers have the attitude that bicycles have no right on the roadway, especially in Melbourne, Australia. The number of people that have cut me off on my bicycle, just like made a turn in front of me. And interesting, the first time that somebody did that to me, I actually got into my first crash on my bicycle, was a pregnant woman. Now, I did make some allowances for her because she was pregnant and she was actually on her way to the doctor and came through an intersection. She went past me at the intersection and she didn't shoulder check and turned right in front of me. And I just went up the side of the car, took the mirror off with my shoulder. And interesting enough, that was the first day that I ever wore a helmet on my bicycle. First day, somebody bought me a helmet. They said, hey, you need to wear a helmet. It was the first day I had a helmet on. And first day I had a helmet on, maybe it's not a good sign that I had a crash. She was very apologetic. It didn't really have to do anything with, with road rage. That was not a road rage incident. Eric, easier to ride a bike than a motorcycle? Yes, well, you're traveling at lower speeds for sure, Eric. And definitely there's going to be some road rage on a motorcycle because people do not treat motorcycle riders well either. DC, how are you, my friend? And Eric says, it's a beautiful day in the Twin Cities. Yes. And Frederick, I'm glad that you made it. So, one of the road rage incidents, I mean, I did have road rage incidences with the truck, but it's like so many things when you're driving. You get tired. Other things are influencing you in your life. You had a fight with your spouse. You had a fight with your boss at work. You get in your vehicle and you're driving and you're angry, right? And as I said, anger, any heightened emotion, sadness, happiness, all of this is going to reduce your brain size, your ability to think rationally in the way that you should. Driving truck on the 401, and this was brake check on somebody, and it wasn't me, it was another vehicle in front of me. I was back about half a kilometer, and I saw it in front of me. Car went past me, moved back in front of me, and another vehicle went past me and the car and moved in front of the car, and at 110 kilometers an hour, which is 65, 68 miles an hour, did a brake check. Just nailed the brakes in front of the car. And, this unfortunately happens where people lose their ability to drive safely on the roadway and will use their vehicle as a weapon. And it happens. People are malicious in using their car and think that nothing is going to happen. And unfortunately, at freeways, at that kind of speeds, at 68 miles an hour, if something goes wrong, it's really going to go wrong. And it's not just you, it's other people. And the unfortunate part, and we've talked about this in other live streams, is that many people view driving and traffic infractions as victimless crimes. Most road rage simply manifests itself as, people in a hurry honking their horn or, flashing their lights or those types of things, and nothing ever comes of it. But there are times that people do maliciously use their vehicle as a weapon. And, this has been talked about in terms of formulating traffic laws since the inception of the motor car. It's, people have, authorities have said this, the motor car is a weapon. What's the difference between using your car as a weapon or any vehicle that you're driving and using a handgun? Because you can do the same amount of devastation. And actually in Australia, there was a legal case that my professor told me about in the Outback. They were at the pub in the Outback. A guy was driving a road train and got into a fight with the patrons in the pub, went out, climbed in his lorry, and drove through the roadhouse, drove through the pub, and he killed 3 or 4 people in the pub with his lorry. And he was brought up on charges of second-degree murder because there was intent to kill. But again, it comes back to that, you get angry and you lose your ability to think clearly, right? 27 lizards and a 4-year-old. That's what your brain power is capable of when you become angry and you're behind the wheel of a motor vehicle. All right, Hall Phase is here. How are you? Hall Phase, I got to ride my motorcycle first time this year. Awesome. May 1st. That's a good time there in Ontario. Harrison, how are you, my friend? Ryan, how do you get pissed off when somebody is honking behind you? How do you not get pissed off? Ryan, you just take a breath and go, oh yeah, that happened. You have to do that. You have to do that. You have to, I think one of the best techniques of being able to drive better and not succumb to your emotions is know that it is going to happen. Eventually, somebody's going to cut you off. Eventually, somebody's going to honk at you. Somebody's going to flash their lights. It's not a matter of if it's going to happen, because, the reason that we get upset is because our expectations that we're going to drive and everything's going to be awesome and everything's going to move out of the way and the seas are going to part and whatnot, our expectations collide with reality. That we think that reality is going to be something different than in fact it is. When the reality is, and your expectations should be such that, oh, okay, somebody is going to cut me off. Somebody's honking at me. Somebody's getting me to hurry up and go. Somebody's crowding me, right? That is going to happen in traffic because it's a social activity. People are in their personal space of their motor vehicle, right? Because the place that we exhibit our strongest emotions is in our personal space, in our house, in our car, right? These are our 2 most personal spaces where we feel safe. And, I would argue that stems to why, why we have so many crashes in motor vehicles, because most people who drive feel safe in their car when in fact you're not, right? There are dangers inherent with driving. All right, Hall phase. There are some people on YouTube that think there should be no license or traffic laws because there are no victims. Hall phase, yeah, absolutely. I mean, we have the anarchists out there who thinks that there shouldn't be any laws and they should be able to do whatever they like. I mean, Hall phase, I mean, you're probably getting the same thing coming across your Facebook feed right now with Trudeau, outlawing assault rifles in Canada. I mean, why do we need assault rifles? Who needs to own assault rifles? I don't, if you're a collector, yeah, fine, but get a license, a special permit for whatever that is for assault weapons, right? So, you have that. That's not a new argument. Farron, I just filmed the surroundings of my car. If anyone gets the car damaged on the road, oh boy, they won't like the big bill I have for them. I dare anyone to damage it. They will regret it. Awesome. Yes. Take into account that I did not do anything wrong on the road. Janet, it's funny because when driving a transport, I'm calm and people don't really bother me that much. I just figure I'm bigger than them. Yes, there is definitely that, Janet, and that's really good that you're calm when you're driving your big truck. What do I think about no rules? I think Hall phase that there needs to be some rules in terms of driving. There needs to be some guidelines. And I essentially that's what we have. Unfortunately, what I think as well is that there are too many, especially in North America, there are too many rules and regulations in place. I believe that we could cull some of the rules and regulations and still have safe roads. This is one of the things that bureaucrats and legislators and lawmakers are not good at. They are not good at repealing legislation. They are not good at culling laws, right? And I believe, I'm not 100% sure, that there is some move on the part of politicians within the world that if they bring in a new law, they have to repeal 2 other ones. They have to try and cull the massive amount of legislation that we currently have in place. Eric, but in my pickup, bad road rage because people on the 401 just drive stupid. Shake my head. Yes, they do. Yes, they do. It's not a matter of if they're going to do it, Janet. It's a matter that, when they're going to do it. Never fight with people. The chances of seeing them again is usually low. Wheelman, I've noticed it's usually the unprofessional drivers that provoke road rage. There are drivers that enjoy this. Yes, it tends to be, drivers that are just driving their cars. I have seen incidents of road rage among professional drivers as well, especially in construction zones. Professional drivers, truck drivers especially, take umbrage when drivers in cars go up the side of the road or they cut in the line or those types of things. That really irritates truck drivers. So, it happens. It's not, everybody is susceptible. Carrie, yes, that reminds me of seeing my neighbor's car all smashed up. Talking to him, he said his son was tailgating and the old man in front of him got mad and just slammed on the brakes. Yeah, did a brake check. And drivers will do that. And this is one of the other reasons that I encourage you to have space management, in front of your vehicle. 3 to 4 second, 2 to 4 second following distance at minimum so that other people don't get upset and brake check you. And it happens. It will happen. People will brake check you. And unfortunately, if you're not paying attention and you're too close, your reaction time is like 0. And this is what I say to people and students, is that if you get too close to the vehicle in front of you, you're now allowing that person in front of you to do the driving. And hopefully you can get your vehicle stopped when they brake check you and you can stop in time. Most of the time you're not going to. Devin, thank you for everything you do, man. I got my permit now, and that is awesome. And where in the world are you located, Devin? Cougar, hey, Rick, time for you to email Jazz Johal, the critic for the dreaded ICBC. People need to be able to work and breathe. The critic, yeah, what is his current line of criticism against ICBC? For those of you who may or may not know, here on the live stream, ICBC is the licensing authority here in British Columbia. It's the Insurance Corporation of British Columbia, which still I have questions about why an insurance corporation a government-run insurance corporation is also responsible for licensing. There seems to be some conflict there. Reuter, in the past 20 years, more Americans were killed in car crashes than were killed in the wars in the past 120 years. Yes, Reuter, that is a very well-known statistic that in the 20th century, more people were killed in car crashes, killed, injured, maimed car crashes than soldiers sent to all of the wars in the 20th century history. So yeah, that's a well-known statistic. DC, I had an incident a few summers back where I was on my bike and someone honked at me for no reason. Unfortunately, I flipped the bird. They pulled a pistol on me, so I booked it. Yeah, that's the thing about the U.S. is a lot of people carry guns. And you know that I'm glad that nothing more than that came with it. I had an incident in Australia very early on. I was riding my bicycle and come up, and this truck made a left-hand turn like right in front of me. And you know, of course, I flipped him off and I told him what I thought of him. And the driver of the truck, the pickup truck, actually went around the block and came back. And he's at a slip lane. He stops in the slip lane where I'm waiting at the red light, and he's beacon off to me from the pickup truck. And I'm just like, dude, let's go, right? I mean, the other thing you need to understand is that most people who are riding push bikes, who are riding bicycles, you know, they're in pretty good shape. So you're sitting in your car having, you know, beacon off at them, you know, but people don't. A lot of drivers don't understand that bicycles, you know, pedestrians, cyclists, and motorcycle riders, these are vulnerable road users. If you get hit, you're going to lose, right? And so my counsel to you, if you're a pedestrian or you're a bicycle rider or a motorcycle rider, you know, just thank your lucky stars and carry on with your life that you didn't get hit, or because you're the one that's going to lose. You're the one that's going to lose, not the person in the car. You're going to get hurt. You're probably going to break your legs or some other, you know, part of your body. Hopefully do not end up with a brain injury, because those are the absolute worst. Chris, I am a trucker, and most of the time road ragers have some type of personality disorder. I had a driver that wanted to fight me because I let another truck merge, so the driver behind me got ticked off. Yeah, it's just crazy, Chris. And actually, when I even before I got my license, way back, the first you know, when I talked about getting my truck driver's license in the summer that I worked moving furniture, I was swamping for this guy, and he was driving the truck, and we were in Windsor. I remember we were in Windsor, Ontario, and we're sitting waiting to turn left at the intersection. And all of a sudden, out of nowhere, this guy runs up. He obviously got out of his car behind the truck, ran up beside the truck, like 50 feet up the truck, climbed up on the side of the truck, and starts beaking off at the driver, like having a go at the driver. And I was like, I'm looking over, because I'm sitting in the passenger. I'm like, what the heck is going on? And apparently he claimed that the guy who's driving the truck cut him off and was driving erratically and this and that and blah, blah, blah. I just thought, you know, that's a pretty precarious situation to have a go at somebody, because I remember it was a cab over. It wasn't a conventional truck. It was a cab over. So for those of you, you know, cab over's a front flat nose on the truck. You're pretty high up in the truck. Like you're, you know, 5-6 feet off the ground. I was thinking, I'm hanging off the side of the truck yelling at somebody. I was like, wow. Okay, Janet, my friend. Okay. Excellent. Thank you so much, Janet, for the support. That's awesome. Jonathan, I've seen that happen. I don't know why people drive too close behind, and I've seen videos of crashes involving that. Yeah, rear end crashes. You got to protect that space all the time. You got to be checking that center mirror, right? Checking your mirrors and seeing where the vehicles are behind. I had a smart driver this morning comment on Facebook that they're in a drive-through. Somebody rear-ended them in the drive-through. Manage space. This is the fundamentals of defensive driving. I cannot stress this enough for you. Manage space around your vehicle. And, you know, part of social driving, part of social driving is that when people pull up at an intersection, they pull right up behind the car in front of them. No, stay back so you can see the tires making clear contact with the pavement. That will protect you. That will give you space to work even in the event of a rear end collision. Because remember, keep in mind, the safety features on your vehicle, the airbag and the seat belts are not designed to protect you in the event of a rear end collision. Because what happens is that in a rear end collision, the vehicle gets shoved forward and you actually slide down underneath the seat belt. The seat belt is designed for a forward collision. So the vehicle is going forward and you slam into a fixed object or another vehicle and you are thrown forward in the vehicle. That's what the seat belt is designed for. It is not designed for the other way. So know that in the event of a rear end collision. Okay, and inspection of the vehicle. Okay, there was something else. What documents do I need to go for the road test for the first time? Yes, Sheldon, where are you in the world taking your road test? And yes, what Jonathan said there, absolutely. You need your learner's permit, your certificate of completion of your driving class, valid registration inspection of the vehicle, and you will also need another piece of identification, whether that's a passport or something else. Usually, Sheldon, on the website, they will have acceptable pieces of identification, whether that's in the States, it's your social security number, and other things as well. So, that's the paperwork that you need. Hall phase, what happened if you crash into someone and left because you fear for your life because the other party might hurt you? Hall phase, that would have to be carried out in a court of law. That would depend on different circumstances and those types of things. But generally what happens is that when you get into a crash, it's not going to be just you and the other party. If there is a crash, usually there's other traffic. Most of the time, I'm not saying all the time, but most of the time, there's going to be other traffic and other people around who will stop to provide assistance. It's unlikely that there's going to be a car crash and nobody will stop. And as well, most people now have, almost all people, especially in North America, and it's probably the same in Europe and other countries, most of the population has cell phones. So by the time there's a crash, 10 or 12 people have called emergency services. So it's not likely that, you're going to be by yourself with the other person having a go at you. I did have a crash at the last place where I lived at the corner of an intersection. Somebody ran the stop sign and crashed into the other person. And, I saw it almost immediately. I went down to offer assistance. And the one driver got out and started having a go at the other driver. And I just sort of stepped in between the two of them. And I just said to the guy, I said, listen, we're all in shock. You just had a crash. I said, just go over there and just sit down. And generally, if you say that in a calm voice when you're helping other people, when you're, attending these places, and I don't know whether 380's here, whether Jake is here, he could talk to this as well, but you have to understand that in the event of a crash, you're in shock, right? Your body just went into shock because you just had a crash and you were not expecting to have a crash. So know that people are going to be upset as soon as they get out of the vehicle because something happened that didn't meet their reality, right? Didn't meet their expectations. Their reality, in essence, collided with their expectations, and those two things really came to a head. So know that people are going to be of high emotion as soon as they get out of the vehicle. Jonathan, speaking of rear-ending, I saw a video of a person backing out of a parking space and crashed at a fire hydrant behind him. $1,000 worth of damage due to the person didn't consider the space behind him. Yes, and Jonathan, that happens all the time. And we were talking about this the other day in terms of using backup cameras and people just relying solely on their backup cameras. Don't rely solely on your backup cameras. First and foremost, when you come up to your vehicle, for example, you're going to load groceries into your vehicle at the grocery store and you're going to back up. Have a look around your vehicle. Take note of the environment in which your vehicle is parked when you come back to it. That's the first thing. Then when you get in the vehicle, even if you do have a backup camera, make sure you're looking out the back. Make sure you're doing a 360-degree scan. And then make sure that you look out the back. Use your mirrors and your backup camera as a secondary aid to successfully backing up. And make sure, first and foremost, make sure that you look before you put the vehicle in motion. Too many people, too many drivers get into backing crashes because they start moving the vehicle before they back up. Krishna, when driving, future for safety rules by courtesy for everyone, sir? Yes. Carrie, reminding everyone to give Rick a thumbs up to show support. Thank you so much, Carrie. Jonathan, also make sure you do a pre-trip inspection of your vehicle. You're taking your road test before the road test day. Last thing you want to do is wait another month to fix anything. Yes, absolutely. And Jonathan, I cannot stress that enough to new drivers, and thank you for pointing that out. Pre-trip inspection. Even if you're going in a driving school car, make sure when you go for your driving test to do a pre-trip inspection on the vehicle before you show up, because the testing authority is going to do a pre-trip inspection. They're going to test the lights. They're going to make sure that the vehicle is safe. They're going to make sure that the correct registration is on the vehicle. When they get in the vehicle, they want to make sure that it's clean. That's, the footwells are not full of fast food wrappers. Seatbelt works. There's no cracks in the glasses, in the windshield or any of the glass on the vehicle. And there's a video here on the channel. Have a look at that, because if you have a brake light out, they're going to deny you your road test. They'll send you home and you have to rebook. And fixing a brake light only takes about 15 minutes. Even if you have to take it down to a mechanic can fix a brake light in less than 10 minutes. So know that something that's easily fixed can be checked the day before you go in for your road test. And as I said, even if you're going in a driving school car, ask the driving instructor, did he or she do a pre-trip inspection on the vehicle? Is everything good to go? And if he or she didn't, then just take 5-10 minutes and do it before you show up for your road test. Carrie, being in a crash is distressing and very upsetting. Thankful for all the advice on how to avoid getting into a crash. You're most welcome. Frederick, my worst driving experience. An imbecile tailgated the car behind me on a highway as approaching traffic got close. He then overtook both the car behind and me, and the approaching car had to steer right and brake. And this is and that's an excellent story that you're talking about there, Frederick. And I've seen this. There's a very famous crash on the freeway, and it's a motorway somewhere in Europe. I don't know where it is. But what happens is the car is screaming down the motorway, and there's a truck beside her here, or him, I don't know. There's a truck beside the driver blocking the view. So they go screaming past the truck. They move over to the middle lane. There's another truck on the inside, so there's 3 lanes. There's another truck here. The car brakes behind the truck and then moves right over into the exit lane. The exit lane is backed up with traffic, and the car just plows into the back of the traffic lined up, because the view was blocked to the right every time the driver moved over and did not see the traffic backed up on the freeway. It's just a horrific crash. And again, it's another, aggressive driving, not necessarily road rage, but it is aggressive driving, and the driver couldn't see what he or she, where they were going this way, and crashed into that line of traffic. Epic, speaking of road rage, this can cause crashes and do an erratic maneuver like using an interstate state police pull-off to make a U-turn towards other directions. Yes, and people do that illegally, unfortunately, where they'll use pull-offs that are designed for emergency vehicles. So, Wheelman, where'd you go? It is very hard not getting out of a cab and bitch slapping arrogant drivers. Breathe and cool off. And yes, and Wheelman, the other thing that what happens with professional drivers is that you've got a lot of other things going on. The other things that you've got going on is that you're working professionally, you're tired because you're not sleeping well. You and I had this conversation yesterday about sleeping in the cab of a truck, even if there is a bunk and it's got all the amenities and those types of things. It's still exhausting, right? You're not getting the proper sleep. You're sleeping in the truck. You're working hard. You're trying to find places. You're under stress getting a truck around. And unfortunately, there's a misconception that truck drivers just sit behind the wheel. There's no, it's easy. Well, it's not easy, right? It's hard work. It's stressful. You got to get the vehicle around. I mean, it's a bit easier now with communications and GPS and those types of things. However, it's stressful, and you're dealing with these people all the time, and eventually there's going to be a point in time where you're just too tired, right? You've worked too much, you need to take a bit of time off, and other drivers just get to you, right? They finally just get to you. So it's going to happen. Jonathan, yeah, there you go. Excellent. Corey put the video up. Thank you, Corey, for doing that. Rooter, I've adopted your philosophy of let them have their crash somewhere else for dealing with road rage. And that's exactly what you need to do, Rooter. You just take a breath, pause, and just slow down. Let your foot off the throttle. You don't necessarily have to brake, and just say to them, hey, go and have your crash somewhere else. Nadine, I want to pay for my session. Nadine, did you want to take the Pass Your Road Test First Time course? You can send me an email, rick@smartdrivetest.com, and I'll definitely get you signed up for the course. Hall phase of crash I personally witnessed was when a car made a right turn from the middle lane and just ran into the car and messed up his tire than the person making the... Yeah, so some people just, they don't look into their blind areas and they cut other people off when they're driving. Another, as I said, most of my road rage instances are on my bicycle. Another time, and one of the things I hate on my bicycle, one of the things that really gets me, and we as drivers, as road users, there's always stuff that gets us, right? We've got our pet peeves. I've got my pet peeve. You want to know what my pet peeve is? My pet peeve, and it usually with senior drivers, that I'm walking across the intersection and some doormat is making a left-hand turn. In Australia and other places would be a right-hand turn, but they're making a left-hand turn and they come up and they drive right up to me. Right up to me. That, instead of staying over in the middle of the intersection and waiting for me to attain the curb before making their turn, but they drive right up to me. And let me tell you, that is my pet peeve when I'm walking across an intersection. I'll just stand there. I'll just stop. And they're 3 feet away from me and I am just having a go at them. So... as a pedestrian, that is my pet peeve. It just boils my blood when drivers making left-hand turns do that. They come right up to me. So the other road rage incident I had in Australia, again, when drivers are crowding me in vehicles. I had a transit driver one day crowd me. He was like 6 inches from my handlebar on my push bike. I called the transit authority in Melbourne and I complained. I got the bus number and I said, listen, this driver is giving me no space on my bicycle. And there's a bicycle lane. That's the other part. The other driver that actually got out of his car and had to go at me on the side of the road, we're coming through an intersection. Again, it's one of the little weird intersections in Melbourne, Australia. And so it narrowed down to less than one lane. And there's a tram, and we're going through the intersection. And the guy in the ute went right beside me so close. He went so close to me that when I could go like this and hammer the side of his car. And I did hammer the side of his car. And he pulls over and stops and he goes like, did you hit my car? Totally beaking off. And, I saw him coming. I saw him stopped. And so I stopped, got my bicycle up and put it against the utility pole. And I'm standing right there. And, he's beaking off. I'm on the curb and he's down on the road. And so, I got 6 inches on him. And he's like, I'm going to hit you, blah, blah, blah. And, I got a martial arts background, and I'm thinking to myself, well, if you're going to hit me, you're not at the best position because you're standing on the road. You need to get up here on the sidewalk if you're going to get some power behind that. And, he had his little go at me for 2 minutes and then got back in his vehicle and drove off. So for other people who might be watching this video, there's the other thing that you need to understand, that when people get angry, they can only stay angry for about 2 minutes unless further provoked, right? When we get angry... a couple of things that you do not do with people who are upset and angry. First of all, never tell them to calm down. You want to really provoke somebody who's upset. Oh, just calm down. I don't want to flip and calm down. So don't tell them to calm down. Second of all, just, talk in a calm voice. Say, listen, and why are you upset? Ask them why they're upset, and they will begin to tell you that. But know that unless they're further provoked, they can only hold that strong emotional anger for about 2 minutes. Okay, so know that. And that was the same thing with this guy that stopped his car and started having to go at me on the side of the road. And that's what I did. I just talked in a calm voice, and after 2 minutes, he got it out of his system and got back in his car, and away he went. Okay, and at the end of the video, when I wrap up here, I'll actually give you some strategies and things that you need to do if you do encounter a road rage incident. All right, Epic, like your videos, Rick. Some jurisdictions have telephone numbers to report a road rage incident. For the state of New Jersey, number 77 is the hotline. 21st century road rage seems to happen on highways late at night. And yes, and just on that point of what Epic is saying is that you can call the police, right? You can report road rage incidents. However, you need to be able to have strategies in place to effectively deal with road rage, because by the time the police show up, it's going to be long over, right? These road rage incidents are going to last less than 5 minutes. It's going to take the police at least a half an hour to get to you. And, hopefully by the time the police get there, the incident is over. You're not in a body bag, right? Because the person, you did something incorrectly and sent the person over the edge. Okay, Rooter, I also drive with a dash cam that faces both outwards and inwards, so anything I do behind the wheel is documented on video. That tends to make me behave a little better. Yes, definitely, Rooter. It definitely does. When I'm driving on camera, I'm definitely behaving more than I sometimes do. Hall Phase, I'm actually surprised that most of your road rage incidents happen on your bicycle. Well, I rode a bicycle a lot. I tend to manage space well when I drive. Eric, I was at a red light waiting to turn when someone started to honk and yell. They veered around me, all mad, swearing at me, turning in front of me. I felt I was in the right. What's your thoughts? Eric, you're going to make mistakes when you're a new driver, but just learn from those mistakes and then just move forward. But don't take it personally, because, the thing about cars is like, cameras. Everybody has one, therefore they think that they can drive, right? They know how to drive. And most people have some notion of how to drive, but most people are social driving. They're not driving, safely or smart. Janet, I have pet peeves, but you don't have enough time to hear them all. That's funny. So you don't have like 2 or 3, you have a whole bunch of them. Cougar, just stay in the vehicle and keep windows rolled up if a road rager approaches. That's absolutely right. Cougar rather, not road rager. Yes, if you have somebody who has a road rage incident, try and increase the space around your vehicle. Don't get near them, right? Do not engage. Do not take pictures of them with your phone. Do not unlock the doors in your car. Do not roll down the windows. Don't start yelling at them, those types of things. And if they continue to follow you, try and go to a public place or go to a police station and, try and deal with it. But do not engage. Do not take pictures of them. Don't yell at them. Don't tell them they're, call them names and those types of things. Do not engage. Jonathan, I would also recommend getting a dash cam where the rear of your vehicle is also monitored, front, back, yeah. Just remember that dash cams sometimes can, they're two-edged sword. They can work against you too, so just know that as well. Wheelman, plan on buying one of those road cams recommended. I have a Garmin currently. I'm not 100% satisfied with it. The video quality isn't what I would like it to be, but it's a fairly decent dash cam. You want to spend, if you want a good quality dash cam, one that's going to run all the time, you want a fairly decent quality one. Cougar, you're not their therapist. Yes. Jonathan, I use my smartphone. Yeah, the only problem with your smartphone is you're going to fill up, the amount of memory that you have on your vehicle. Wheelman, it sounds like you're driving in Florida. Beware of seniors wearing hats and driving Buicks. That's funny. I didn't even think that they had Buicks in Europe. That is funny. There you go. Okay, so they're talking about dash cams. Awesome. And yeah, so basically, road rage incidents, if you're dealing with road rage incidents, as I said, try and manage your space around your vehicle. Try and distance yourself from them. do not engage, do not pull over, do not roll down the windows, don't talk to them, lock your doors, don't get engaged, especially in the United States of America. I mean, you have to realize you don't know who you are up against in terms of a road rage incident, right? And one of the guys that I worked when I was working part-time at the butcher shop in Australia comes in one day, he's got this black eye. And he wouldn't tell me right away why he had a black eye. And it eventually came out after a little while of kind of teasing him about his black eye and those types of things, and, coming up with different scenarios of why he got a black eye. It turned out, he was a young guy. He was only 23 or 24, and, had a road rage incident. And turns out, the other driver pulled in front of him, stopped the car, and the other driver got out, bricklayer, didn't even hesitate, walked up to him and just punched him in the head. 50-year-old bricklayer. Boom! And he come in and he had a black eye. So know that you don't know what you're up against. It happens. And this one of the books that I looked at, Criminal on the Road, which was a book that was written in the 1960s rather. Criminal on the Road, there's a case study in Criminal on the Road where the guy said, if people flip me off or people are following me too close in the car, he says, I chase them down, I force them off the road, I pull them out of the car, and I beat the living crap out of them. So you don't know what you're up against. And, as has been said here, in the United States of America and other countries in the world, some people have firearms in their cars. And, that could end very badly for you. So do not engage and, keep your space and those types of things. Lightning error being hit by a dude when I was backing up from his driveway. I was walking past when he hit me. He was ticked off for being in his way. If he did his checks, he would have seen me. Yeah, and again, Farron, this comes back to when people back up, they put the vehicle in motion before they look, and they just start backing up. And this is another thing that you need to be careful of when you're walking through supermarket and shopping mall parking lots is, where's the vehicles and those types of things? Are the reverse lights on? Can you hear it clunk into reverse? Because all of this stuff is things that you need to pay attention to when you're walking, because you're a vulnerable road user and you're going to get hurt. Eric, thanks so much for everything you've done for me. I've really learned a lot. I hope you continue to be successful with your channel. Great advice as always. Blessings to you. Thank you so much, Eric. And we are going to continue with the weekly live streams at Sunday at 6. So we'll be back tomorrow night at 6, and then it'll be every week for there. Farron dash cams are awesome. I film all angles. I'm not paying for any damages people inflict on my car. That was not my fault. It's very expensive. Yes, and they can be expensive. The highway where it took place with my instructor and the elderly woman had no traffic congestion. Okay, that's another story. Jonathan says, my driving class instructor told me she was in a vehicle with an elderly woman who was going 10 to 15 miles on the highway with 55 mile an hour. She yelled to go, and the old woman said, let them go around. Yeah. And unfortunately, when elderly people, seniors, are doing that, they're driving at a very low speed on a high-speed freeway or highway. The authorities should be intervening and retesting to see whether they're actually safe to have a driver's license. Farron, I forgot to add that he was backing up pretty fast, so I had no time to react. And yes, this is the other thing about backing up, and I'll just reiterate, go slow. You have more time to observe. If something happens, you have more time to react, and possibility to get the vehicle stopped. And if you are unfortunate that you do hit something when you're backing up, same thing with cornering in a large vehicle or any vehicle. If you're going slower and you do hit something, you're going to do less damage than if you're going like a crazy person. So know that. All right. So great stories here today about road rage incidents and those types of things. And yes, as Hall of Fame said, most of my road rage incidents were on my bicycle with cars. I have had a few in the vehicle, but most of the time it was my fault, tailgating too close to other vehicles and those types of things. But, do not engage with people who are upset, especially on roadways and those types of things. But I'm bad. If I'm a pedestrian and somebody's crowding me on that left-hand turn, they're driving right up to me, I'm not very good at keeping my cool when people do that. I generally stop and I'm shaking my fist. But for the most part, most of the time, I do keep myself cool and don't, I don't engage. Wheelman, samurai philosophy: the superior overcomes the inferior, intelligence defeats ignorance. Yes, that is a really good saying, Wheelman. And one of the things that I try to remind myself about when I do become angry now, or I feel myself, about to, that switch is about to go off. 27 lizards and a 4-year-old. That's where we're going in terms of how much intellect we're going to have once that switch turns, right? And we all been there. We just lose our cool. If it's with your loved one or somebody that you care about, and you feel that switch coming, you're like, okay, I'm gonna go for a walk, I'm gonna cool down, and I'm gonna come back, and we'll finish the discussion. This is the technique that I've learned. I'm still working on that. I'll be back, and we're gonna talk about it. It's important that you say you're gonna be back, right? Don't just leave and go for a walk. They might understand, but be sure that you say, I'm too angry. I need some time to cool off, and I'm going to come back and go for a walk. But when you're already in that moment, when you're already up against that switch, you got to kind of work really hard on that intellect thing. The number of times I was hit and almost hit is endless. Interesting. I'm looking forward to coming to South Africa and driving there and seeing how that goes. Reuter, I think most road rage is caused by drivers defying expectations. Driving with the expectation that unexpected things will happen can help rein in emotions. Absolutely, Reuter. Absolutely. Krishna, thank you so much. Experience for lecture. Explain for everyone. Yes, you're most welcome. Thank you, Krishna. Hall Phase, I think this daily stream saga was very successful. Yeah, I think it was too. Hall Phase, it worked really well. Jonathan, I had a colleague I spoke to at work about where her daughter allowed her ex-boyfriend drove her car and he damaged it badly. Her insurance went up from $100 a month to over $1,000 a month. Yes, and be careful about who you let use your car, because unfortunately that's what's going to happen. Janet, I think one of my truck training drivers had road rage with me. I was doing 40 and a 60 and I was comfortable. He kept telling me to speed up. Got the nickname Granny. That's not just you, Janet. Every driver at the beginning needs to be pushed in a truck, and it happens all the time. I used to tell my students that all the time, and I used to my saying when that happened with students when they were driving too slow in a speed zone is that I'd look out the window and I'd be like, hey, there's my grandma with her walker passing us. So yeah, you got to get the vehicle up to speed as quickly as possible. Doesn't matter whether you're driving a truck, a bus, or a car, or a motorcycle, anything it is. You get the vehicle up to the posted speed limit as quickly as possible. Epic daily streams to be a success, very helpful, new and experienced drivers. And yes, excellent. All right. Okay, so thank you so much. Take care. Try to, keep your emotions in check. Don't engage if you are unfortunate enough to get into a road rage incident. And Farron says, if you come to South Africa, be wary of public taxi drivers. None of them have driver's licenses. It's a huge problem here. They don't have driver's licenses or they don't have taxi licenses, Farron. Okay, so so we're going to leave it there. Thank you so much for being here with me for the daily live stream during the month of April. Hopefully the world is going to get back to some semblance of normalcy here in the month of May, and we can start moving out and talking to other people. And we can start international travel and those sorts of things. I was actually supposed to be in New York State this weekend in Binghamton, and New York tomorrow, or New York on Monday, actually, New York City on Monday. I was a little disappointed that didn't happen, but here we are and doing our best. And remember, pick the best answer, not necessarily the right answer. All the best. Bye now.